So I'll show Wes and Wes. There we go. Beth Dobransky or Jennifer Kirkland. You're both here.
Oh, happy May.
Bruce Romero is here.
Oh, guys.
Valicia Librand, Paula Nall, or Kayla Friend.
Felicia's on the phone.
Which one was that?
Felicia.
Felicia. Jeff Irvin is here. Connie Johnson, we established, is here. Paula Creasy is here. Athena Butler or Shelley Lesnansky? Nothing heard. Vicki Pickett is here. Scott Newman.
Hi, Daryl. I'm on the phone.
Sean Shear or Brandy Seaton?
Sean Shear on the phone.
Thank you, Sean. Carl Simpson or John Lofgren?
John Lofgren's on the phone.
Thank you, John. Carl Stevens is here. Patty West, Ted McEldowney, or Christine Mason? Nothing heard. That gives us 23 members out of 29, or 79%, which gives us a quorum. And before we move on, I want to point out those of you who have gotten the, which should be all of you, have gotten the agenda by email. There's a link where it says please sign in. Instead of doing a paper sign-in sheet, which we send around the room and still misses all of the people online, this link will take you to a website where there'll be a form where you can sign in on the website. And for those of you in the room, if you want to use the QR code that's on the screen right now or on the paper agenda, if you printed it out, you can do that, and it should take you to it on your cell phone.
Hey, Daryl, this is Patty. I'm on. I couldn't unmute fast enough.
That's fine. Thank you, Patty. That brings us to 83%.
When you muted for the feedback, you said you were muting Shelley. Was that Shelley Lesnansky?
No, that was Shelley Gunther.
Did you want to go around the room for people that aren't on the...
Sure. So anybody, let's go around the room for anybody I didn't call out.
Jeremy Duncan.
Jeremy Duncan.
Joe Friend.
Andy Stolzheimer.
Joe Benkert.
Jack Ewan.
Daryl Branson.
And Tom Holman.
Anybody on the phone who I haven't called yet?
Matt Gates.
Jackie Louise.
Holly Weiss.
Greg Brooks with Solacom.
Ed Mills, CBO.
Kerry Del Valle, Summit.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Okay, next item is approval of minutes for May 2019. They've been sent out. Can I get a motion to approve, or is there any changes to the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. This is Kimberly.
Second. And Jeff seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Okay, and we'll start with Cheryl.
Cheryl Garcia, are you ready?
Can you hear her?
Hi. Again now.
Sure. Okay. Cheryl says hi.
Hi, Cheryl.
She says, as you know, the FCC has put out a notice for the annual EAS test. It's on August 2nd. Oh, 7th. I'm sorry. August 7th. And my concern is at 2:20 in the afternoon. My concern is this is not a universal testing, so people who are deaf will not be able to participate. Also, my ADA contact is on vacation, and as soon as I get it, I will send out a response as soon as I get the answer to that concern about the people who are deaf. Go ahead, Cheryl, continue. And what? Cheryl is typing. Cheryl is saying they are intentionally excluding WEA from the testing because they want to test the legacy system for sending EAS messages. This is a smart move because they want to make sure EAS messages can successfully be sent if there is no internet access. And go ahead, Cheryl. Cheryl saying, does anyone have any questions to that her statement?
It doesn't all look like it.
Repeat that, please.
No, I think we're good.
Okay. So you have no until you discuss. So until she discusses this with her ADA contact, she's going to sort of table the rest of the discussion until that point. And what else, Cheryl? Cheryl is typing August 7th at 2:20 will be the test. So after that, I will be sending out a survey to see who got it, or what kind of survey. Is that right? Yeah. Just a survey. Okay. She'll be sending out a survey about it. Is that everything, Cheryl? That's all she wants to say at this time. She says thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
And then we'll come back to PUC staff update. We'll do BSP reports, anything from CenturyLink?
Wes, did you have anything?
No, I don't, but I see Tim's on the line. Tim, do you? Oh, Tim, *6. Tim's working to get off mute.
I didn't know how to get off the mute, so. I don't have anything specific. I know that we're continuing to work on setting up meetings with authorities and PSAPs as we continue to transition to the NG later this year. So I don't know if there's any questions. I know we had the user group meeting yesterday, and my apologies I couldn't make it. So I don't know if there were some things that came up from that you'd like us to take back or we talk about here today. That's all I have.
Thank you, Tim. And we have an item on the agenda for the user group understanding committee reports too.
Okay.
And anything else from CenturyLink?
Nothing else.
Mary Jane, did you have anything?
I do just have a couple of quick things. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Sorry. I want to make sure I've got the mute thing down. So just real briefly, you may have heard rumors that we are changing our name at West, and those rumors are true. We are going back to the Entrado name. So our new leadership recognized the value in the name, and it's not a flash cut, so you'll probably hear both references for a little while. but just wanted to let you know that that is going to be the name of our company going forward. Don't have an exact date. Like I said, it's not a flash cut. So we'll be kind of intermingling while we get all of the regulatory filings done and legal name change things finished, et cetera. So that. Also, Daryl, I'm not sure, you may have this on your, on your list of items, but a couple of things at the FCC, the Carries Law, Ray-Baum Act with the dispatchable location and MLTS, that is set on the August 1st FCC's meeting for a decision. So looking forward to that. And also, I wanted to make sure, I'm not sure if you guys, anybody is looking at the robocall docket, but there is a specific section in there that's asking about protection for critical calls. So that has to do with PSAPs and making sure that calls aren't blocked coming in or out. So you might want to take a look at that. Comments are due July 24 and replies are due August 23rd on that. So if you have any questions, I can forward that docket to you, Daryl, if you want. So anyway, that was all I have for today. Thank you.
Hey, Mary Jane, this is Monica. Could you send me that information and I'll put it out to the listserv for the PSAPs so that their attorneys can weigh in on that too?
I can. I'm not sure where to send that to you at.
director@co911rc.org.
Oh, okay. Perfect. We'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yep, and I was sitting here nodding my head at a phone, which is not helpful because you couldn't see it. But thank you very much for
I could see it. I could. No.
Joe brought up the fact that the robocall issue does impact PSAPs as well before the meeting, so that'll be good to get out to the group. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
And then we'll go back to PUC staff update.
Let's see if I can read without my reading glasses. Maybe it'd be easier to read up there. Hey, thanks. Oh, no, that's not going to work. Anyway, so we'll start with the Federal 911 Grant Program. I unfortunately have nothing to report other than I told you so because they said that they would get out the final awards by the end of June, and I said I don't believe that will be true, and it turns out I was correct. So we are still waiting for the announcement of the final awards. Second is the 911 reliability proceeding. That is still ongoing. Those of you who've been participating in those are probably wondering when the next meeting is, and I apologize for not getting that scheduled yet. I have a tendency to volunteer for things or over-engage in things, and so I've gotten a little behind on some of this stuff, but I will get that scheduled tomorrow and send that out to everybody. Where we're at on that is that we've determined that there are a lot of aspects of 911 diversity and reliability that we're not going to be able to dive too deeply into while the ESINet migration is ongoing, because the ESINet migration will theoretically solve some of those things, but we don't know which of those things necessarily it will solve. We know that there are certain aspects of 911 diversity that it will probably not solve, so we're going to focus on those, particularly looking at specific areas. We're going to pick an area or a small number of areas as a test case and do some research into how we could improve 911 diversity in those particular test cases. So more on that at the next meeting. Hopefully we'll have some of that work under our belt. We can report on that in a little more detail. Anybody else who's part of those, keeping in mind that we can't share specifics that are covered by the NDA, but anybody else who's involved in that want to share any thoughts or comments about how that process is going?
This is Kimberly. I just want to add a shout out to get you to participate. So this is going to impact, depending on how it ends up, could impact you by cost, it could impact you by your area and improving the connectivity in your area. So it's important for the authorities to get involved, and it's disappointing on the few that we have involved. So I would love to have more people engaged in these discussions. And it's not difficult to do. You don't have to engage your attorney to do so, but just really encouraging people to get involved in the conversation.
They have to intervene on the proceeding?
No. So the commission basically approved a relaxed procedure on this. To make it easier for people to participate. All you have to do is file an NDA. It's literally a 4 or 5 line form. You just have to say, I will not share confidential information outside of these workshops, and that's it. That's all you have to do. And you don't even have to file those through the e-filing system. You can send them to me, and I will get them filed on your behalf. So it's very easy to get involved, and you can participate in as many or as few of the meetings as works in your schedule. But as Kimberly said, this is going to impact pretty much everybody in the state. So.
And you can participate by Conference Bridge.
Yes, we are making Conference Bridge available for all of the calls.
So next week during the regional ESINet meetings in Trinidad and Durango, we'll make sure, Kimberly, good point, we'll make sure to talk about it. We haven't been at the other 3 meetings, so I'll make sure we say something about it. We're really trying to encourage all of our 911 folks to really get engaged in the state activities because there's so much going on right now. So we are at least making that point, but I'll talk about the diversity and then let Daryl elaborate.
Sounds good.
The reason that this will impact everyone, the workshops and the underlying proceeding come out of the rulemaking, I think it was 2 years ago, where Centrelink is going to identify all the areas where the 911 network does not have redundancy and diversity. And then the idea is that there will be an increase in the tariff charge or a separate tariff charge on all 911 authorities that will be used to pay for providing diverse facilities, redundant facilities where they don't currently exist within the network.
Mm-hmm. And we did send out a survey from that working group not that long ago asking, what the priorities should be for choosing which areas to focus on first regarding diversity and how much the 911 authorities would be able or willing to pay for increased 911 network diversity. And I know that's a tough subject because a lot of people are still trying to figure out how they're going to pay for the increased charges for the ESINet right now.
But I'm going to throw an idea on the table that I think some of us have been bantering about, and that is this is another opportunity to talk about what a statewide surcharge could pay for. Because when we talk about diversity in the system, we're talking about a statewide effort. While there are regional pockets where that would benefit more than maybe the metro area or some of us on the I-70 corridor, there's still an opportunity to improve the diversity of our network from a statewide perspective. And to me, using the logic of what a statewide surcharge would apply to, this falls right in line with what that could be.
Right.
So again, everybody really needs to be engaged in these conversations because there is some huge opportunity for us to make some really dramatic impacts in our system if we do this right.
What time is the meeting on?
Well, so we haven't scheduled a new one yet. As soon as I get that scheduled, I can, if you're interested, email me. I'll make sure you're on that distribution.
I am. I personally have a meeting every Tuesday.
Okay. We've been doing them Tuesday mornings. I don't know if the next one will be on a Tuesday morning because I did a doodle poll and just haven't been able to schedule from it yet.
It's Tuesday.
Yeah, so there was a standing one for Tuesday every other week. If you still have that on your calendar, you should probably remove that because that's probably not when the next one's going to be. Any other questions or thoughts about the 911 reliability proceeding? For those of you who are involved in that proceeding, you might have seen, especially if you've intervened as a party, you will have received a letter from the PUC announcing some organizational changes. That's just letting you know that I now have a new boss. I was on the trial side of the PUC. Since my boss, Lynn Natariani, has moved on to a position in the private sector, I am now reporting to Ron Davis, who works for the advisory section of the PUC. And for most of you, that won't mean a whole lot. For those of you who are lawyers who are involved in the PUC proceedings and understand the difference between trial and advisory, it was deemed important to let you know that that change had been made, but it doesn't change what I'll be doing for the reliability proceeding. Under federal rulemaking, the proposed rulemaking regarding Z-axis 911 location rules, proposing, among other things, a 3-meter accuracy rate for 80% of wireless 911 calls in testbed settings or dispatchable location. I know that's complicated, but basically saying that they have proposed that 80% of all 911 calls made in testbed situations have to be within 3 meters of the actual location of the handset in terms of Z-axis. So how high up the handset is. And that has to be, it either has to be provide that 3-meter accuracy or provide a dispatchable location. In other words, actually giving a address and floor number to the dispatcher. Bretza did file comments in that, and I made a link to Bretza's comments in my report. The PUC did not make comments or did not file comments in this particular proceeding. And Jack, as Mary Jane said, on the August, Mary Jane, have you? I don't know if you're still on the call yet. I know you said you had to leave early, but we'll get that out to everybody as to when the next FCC meeting is, and the Kerry's Law rules that they had previously proposed will be up for a decision at that meeting.
Yeah, it's August 1st, Daryl.
First, thank you. Any others that I'm missing? Joe, do you want to talk about the robocall item that they put out?
Yeah, the commission issued a declaratory ruling that wireless carriers would be able to implement, and encourage them to implement, default robocall blocking, and you would have to notify them and request to opt out of that blocking. AT&T, I think, is the only one that has implemented it to date. The language they talk about is default blocking of robocalls based on reasonable call analytics. I don't know what the reasonable call analytics would be. It's separate from the spoofing of caller IDs, which they're separately trying to address. It could include that. If there is concern that they might block non-legitimate 911 calls, then there would be a reason for PSAPs to opt out of that to the extent they're affected. The other thing that was discussed earlier while we were waiting is I think, Carl, you were saying that ENS calls are being blocked because they appear as robocalls?
Yeah, we launched an Everbridge a while back, and I opted into T-Mobile's, and T-Mobile blocked the call. Probably because it's seen as a spoof number.
I need to call that to the FCC's attention. They probably didn't even occur to them.
On the
Hey, Carl, that's really concerning. Did you follow up with T-Mobile and see if that's what they did?
Not yet. I unblocked it in the app, but I haven't followed up with T-Mobile yet.
I suspect what they're doing with the analytics is they're seeing a flood of calls coming in.
Right.
And if they're doing it, then probably the other systems will do it too.
Because ENS calls are, in fact, robocalls.
Yeah.
Not distinguishable.
So
From their system, it probably looks exactly the same. I'm sorry.
If it inadvertently blocked 911 calls, it wouldn't be on a PSAP by PSAP basis that you would have to make this change, because 911 is a nationwide number, so 911 would just, it's not like I could unblock 911 for my community and it's still blocked in
It would be if someone was trying to reach you through your admin line, I would think.
Right, but that wouldn't be a 911 call.
Doesn't it hit
The Everbridge. It does, but the person isn't dialing a 10-digit number.
So
I don't know how that part works.
Yeah, I don't know. I just know if people are blocking calls by default.
Mary Jane, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and this is part of what I was mentioning in the ongoing docket, not the declaratory ruling, but it's all in the same docket. So I think I will get this over to Monica to make sure that you can look at this, but that's exactly what the Commission's asking for input on in the rulemaking. It's under a section called Protections for Critical Calls. They want to make sure, they specifically state in this rulemaking that, the Commission has always prohibited blocking calls to 911, and that will continue. But they want to get input from the public safety community about what other numbers should be placed on a critical list, and how should that list be protected, disseminated. So they're asking for a lot of feedback that I think, this is where you could really give some real-life examples and have input. So I would urge you to look at this and get some comments in. And also, Daryl, when you interface with NASDA and things, you might want to make sure that the other, because it's really kind of hidden in this docket that is not focused on that so much. So don't let the opportunity go by to get some input in.
Yeah, I will. I haven't heard anything through NASNA, so I don't think they're aware of the impact here. And based on how 911 calls are routed to PSAPs through a 911 system service provider, it really seems to me that probably the bigger concern would be blocking of ENS calls going out.
So, Carl, I'm just curious, how big of an area? I mean, was it a pretty big notification? That's why I saw that traffic, or?
I was trying to think. I don't know how it did it, because we don't, 90% of our citizens are probably Verizon.
Yeah.
But the app I have, it blocked it, and you can unblock them and stuff, so I don't know how it noticed. But we also have people dispatch our dispatch numbers. That's probably, I don't know how they're going to work that out. They've spoofed our dispatch numbers and called people.
They're doing that to us right now.
Yeah, but if they unblock those and people spoof them, that's just going to create more problems for us.
But this would be great information to file with the FCC about how this is impacting us.
Because the FCC, I believe it says something that we have a way, there's supposed to be a way for us to report issues without blocking our numbers. But I think I'll also follow up with Everword as well.
Anything else? Thank you, Joe and Mary Jane. Federal legislation, I'll just go over the stuff that's changed. The NG 911 Act of 2019 and the next one are both NG 911 Act of 2019. One's the Senate version, one's the House version. They have both been introduced. They were introduced on May 15th, so after the last task force meeting. The Senate version was introduced by Amy Klobuchar. The House version was introduced by Anna Eshoo. We're both part of the NG 911 caucus, and they've both been referred to committee. The House version has been incorporated into the next one that you see there, House Bill 2741, which is the Lift America Act, which is a comprehensive infrastructure bill, and they held hearings on that on May 22nd. I don't know if there's been any movement since then. There hasn't been anything in the news about it. But does anybody know of any other action on those bills?
All I'm hearing through the grapevine is that they're pretty much sitting still because there's not a lot of cooperation in Congress.
Right.
And we only have 2 people in Congress that represent, so we need to get the other ones on board.
Oh, no, this is the funding.
Okay.
Yeah, so to give everyone an overview of what these are, they would essentially create an ongoing grant program for next generation 911 deployment nationwide. They call for a very optimistic $12 billion nationwide for NG 911 deployment. I was very happy when I heard that. Daniel Henry from NENA kind of reset my expectations on that, saying that that's probably not where it will end up, but it's a good starting point. Right now in Congress, getting anything passed is very difficult. So, as Monica said, they're sitting still right now. No activity on the other items that we're following. Monica, do you want to give us an update on the 911 Saves Act?
We're up to 90 House representatives on the House bill and 21 senators on the Senate bill. We're looking for 170 members of the House to sign on. There's not really a target number for the senators, but the more the merrier. I continue to send out updates on the status blog, but we still only have Senator Gardner and Representative DeGette signed on in the state of Colorado. For those of you that are sending letters and making phone calls, thank you very much. Keep it up. We're making an announcement at each of the ESINet meetings to encourage our public safety partners to do the same and encourage our friends and family to do the same. We're thinking there might be some movement on this towards the fall, so we're trying to gain some more momentum with some co-signers on both pieces of legislation.
But please do make the calls. Send the letters, send the emails, but the calls are what really make the difference.
Yeah.
And for those of you who aren't familiar with the Act, what this does is it would require the Office of Management and Budget to reclassify public safety telecommunicators as public safety personnel rather than clerical personnel. Did I say that right, Monica?
Correct.
Anybody aware of any other activity on any of these other bills that were introduced and haven't moved any since the last time I checked? Okay. And then Colorado legislation is easy. The Colorado General Assembly is out of session. Will return to session in January 2020. I'm not aware of any pending 911 related legislation other than what the legislative committee itself is working on, which we can talk about understanding reports.
There are two bills that may impact 911 authorities that passed last year and have been signed. HB 1911-79 address legal investments of public funds. So if you're amassing surcharge funds to make capital purchase in the future, what you can invest them in to make more money than what you get at a bank. They made amendments to what is legal. And HB 191087 concerned online notice of public meetings of local public entities. It's arguable that an argument could be made that it doesn't apply to 911 authorities, but if you give the online notice, that would satisfy any notice requirements under law. And the bill actually says that progress is being made towards all government meetings having online public notice for the next couple of years. The legislature will take further action. So,
okay. I remember we did track that one, the one about public notices of meetings. I don't remember the one about the investment, so I'll get that information out to the group too. Any questions or comments on my report? Thank you.
And then next is the standing committee. Did you have anything else?
Nope.
Next is standing committee reports. The agenda committee, Darrell.
I have nothing to report other than we will be meeting between now and the next task force meeting to kind of get brainstorm some ideas of future topics and speakers for the task force.
Okay. Bylaws committee, Kimberly.
We have no changes to the bylaws at this time.
Okay. Legislative, Athena or Jackie?
Jackie Louise, the legislative committee is, I think, making great progress. We're still working on draft language. We are also working on trying to get everybody on the same page for some detail in that particular language. And hopefully we'll be able to have something in a draft form by the next PUC task force meeting.
Jackie, can I talk a little bit about the survey?
Yep, go ahead. I wasn't sure what all we wanted to go into there.
Sure. I just want to kind of give people a heads up. We've got a draft survey we're working out the details on that we'll hopefully be able to get out to the 911 authorities soon. A lot of the sections of the legislation that we're looking at, we're doing some really significant revisions of the whole Title 29, Article 11, which is where the 911 surcharge rules are. But there's one section that we want to make sure that we're getting right and putting together draft language that meets the needs of the whole 911 community, not just the committee members. And that's the section talking about the potential of a statewide 911 surcharge. potentially a supplemental 911 surcharge on top of the local 911 surcharge. And so we're working out the details of what a survey would look like, asking for your input on that idea and what the details of that idea would entail. And so if we're able to get the committee to agree on the details of that survey, then we'll be getting that out to you hopefully within the next couple of weeks. Did I get that right, Jackie?
Yes, you summed up that very well. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, next is Equal Access. Holly?
Hi, this is Holly Bice. Not a ton to update here. We've had a little bit of trouble getting folks to engage a little bit with this committee, but Daryl and I have continued to reach out to some of the local PSAPs who had indicated last year that they will have text to 911 up and running sometime in 2019, and there were a couple who confirmed that that is still the case, and those PSAPs indicated it will be very soon. We had one PSAP that indicated that they are actually now up and running, and another PSAP realized that they could do some partnering with a nearby PSAP to do transfer of their calls, and so I know that they were reaching out to see how that might work out. That was the bulk of what our text to 911 kind of work that we had been doing was at. But something else that I just kind of wanted to briefly mention and think about in terms of accessibility. We've recently realized that Android and Google are doing a lot of great things with the ability to add captioning or transcribe live meetings. And so Daryl and I actually did a testing on using Google Transcribe, which is available on Android phones. We did it when we were at the Mountain Connect conference, and it actually has some really great accuracy. It wasn't always perfect, but it's beating a lot of the stuff that we've seen out there. So just something for folks to be aware of, that if you're trying to in any way gauge people with disabilities, that some of that can be a great option, either for them to be able to have access to captioning during meetings, or if you are trying to produce any type of videos or information that's going out to the public using Google Transcribe, you can then take the recording that has taken voice to text, and you can actually go in and then make edits. And so where things weren't exactly perfect, you can go in and change it. And then you have a really easy access to a transcript to be able to attach to things that are going out to the public. So just trying to keep in mind about making things accessible all the time, not only when deaf or hard of hearing people are saying, hey, do you mind providing captions for this, but just making it kind of part of our daily way that we are interacting, whether that's on social media, if we're posting videos on social media, through our personal pages or through our organizational pages. There's a lot of great resources out there to start making things accessible, especially since so many people have a hearing loss and don't actually tell people that they have a hearing loss. Oftentimes with folks who are veterans or just, becoming a little bit older, there's a lot of stigma attached to that. And so if we're just constantly making ourselves aware that let's try to be 100% accessible all the time, I think that's a great way to change and flip the script on this isn't just for people who are deaf or hard of hearing, but for an entire community. I mean, I know 100% when I'm on social media, it's usually not with volume. And so adding things like this to videos that are going out, to PSAs that are going out that have captionings is going to be beneficial to both people in the disability community and just everybody else who is using technology. Daryl, was there anything else to add for the Equal Access Committee that you can recall?
Oh. Your comment from Cheryl?
By Cheryl.
Cheryl was saying if you are making flyers, she's typing. There's a criteria for people with disabilities. People who, what? Oh, I'm sorry, I got ahead of her. People with low vision. Like what, large type or white on black or whatever their needs are. There's what?
Cheryl, are you talking, this is Holly, are you talking about image descriptions as well?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so what Cheryl is talking about, and this is something I do on my own personal social media, it's called image descriptions. So if you have individuals who are following whatever page it is that you're using, and they have low vision or they're considered blind, we use something called an image description. So let's just throw this out there. I post a picture of me and my dog, which is pretty much what my social media is. So I may have friends who can maybe very vaguely see what that picture is. So what I do, I add an image description and it'll say, Holly, a white female with blonde hair, is smiling at the camera, and a black and white small dog is sitting next to her. And so that actually allows people who have low vision to use perhaps any like residual vision that they do have along with the image description to help them better grasp what they're seeing. And so I use this a lot in my nonprofit organization as well. We make sure that our images also have image descriptions. So that's something to consider maybe in a professional arena when you're posting pictures and things like that. Just that, again, making things accessible off the bat instead of people having to come to us and beg to have things made accessible to them.
Yes, Cheryl agrees. And what, Cheryl? Cheryl is saying the NCR-AFN meeting is August 5th. At 1 o'clock? Yeah. Oh, at 1:30? Well, 1 to 3. So, is that all you have to say? That's all from Cheryl for now. Go ahead.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Do you know on Google Meets if it does that? Because there's a setting in there like that I found yesterday that does something about language.
In Meets?
Yeah. I wasn't sure if that's what it was for.
I don't know about Meet. Oh yeah, turn on captions. Let's try that. Let's see what it does.
I wasn't sure if it actually did anything or not.
There it is. Look at that at the bottom of the screen.
I was messing with the settings to get the volume to go away.
This is Holly. I think this is very much what the Google Transcribe is using, is this type of technology.
That's really cool. And see, that's one thing about Google is they do this stuff and then they don't tell anybody about it. I had no idea. So while you were talking, Holly, I turned on the transcribe function on my Android phone and was showing people, and it was even with the distortion on the phone, it was capturing your words almost perfectly. And for those of us who aren't used to it, it's kind of distracting to have these words show up on the screen as I'm talking. But it's amazingly accurate.
Cheryl says, "How about me?"
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. Got it.
Would it capture her words?
This is Holly. Cheryl, it's calling you Charles. So I think it still needs a little bit more work. You're Charles instead of Cheryl.
She said, "I'm teasing. You don't understand her dialect of English?"
Yeah, I don't think it's ever going to be perfect, but, you know, for people with hearing issues, it might be helpful.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, she says it's her southern accent.
Yeah, that's it.
And then, is there any movement on some of those centers that said they were never going to go to text, or there's no plans to go to text? So some of them are regional centers that.
So that was something I wanted to bring up as long as we were on the topic. We've really slowed down on implementation of text 911 in Colorado. I'm working on the annual State of 911 report. One of the things I talk about in there is what our progress is on text 911. We really haven't moved a whole lot since last year. There are several PSAPs that have told us that they're working on it still for 2019. If you've got contacts with some of these guys out on the Eastern Plains, or you are some of these guys out on the Eastern Plains, for example, it might be good to talk to them and see if there's anything that we can do to help move them along.
We're hitting it hard during the ESINet conversations, and of course next week when we're in the Southeast and Southwest, we're going to talk about it again because hopefully we can capture that big red center.
And then
is that big one right there, that big hole, is that all one center?
So
San Luis?
These 6 are San Luis Valley E911, and then this up here is Moffett. So between those two, you've got the 2 911 centers that are run by Colorado State Patrol. And I think, Monica, maybe you and I can have some meetings with them.
And they have there's some new management
right.
in San Luis. I know the former manager was not in favor of it. Maybe this one is.
So San Juan County is dispatched, or their 911 folks go to State Patrol.
Right.
We will be executing an IGA in September. Mexico will take on all their text to 911.
Oh, excellent. That's good to hear. That's good to hear.
This is Cheryl.
Go ahead.
Cheryl says Carl has text to 911. Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Daryl, what are the 2 yellow items?
Okay, so the yellow means one PSAP in the county has text 911, but the other doesn't. So in Gilpin, I think it's Black Hawk that has it, but the county doesn't.
Correct.
And then in Pueblo, the
City has it? The city has it.
okay, I couldn't remember which one had it and which one didn't, but that's what the yellow means.
And then Lake County has become just one
This is Robert Sanchez, the regional manager for the State Patrol Alamosa Dispatch Center. We've been working with Solacom and now Comtechtel with our new rep, Greg Brooks, to get on board with text to 911. He's working on that project for us now. Hopefully we'll be on with that by the end of the year. But it's a project that kind of stalled due to the acquisition of Comtech and Solacom. But now that Mr. Brooks is on the job, we're working with him to get going with that.
That's great news.
Awesome.
Are you gonna?
Who was that?
Yeah, who is that?
That was Alamosa.
It's Alamosa.
So a big pocket.
Are you gonna be at the meeting in Trinidad or the one in Durango next
I'll
week?
be at the meeting in Trinidad on the 16th.
Okay, perfect.
Florida County, we're fully.
Okay. So as soon as you're ready for that to be public, I can turn you green.
Waiting for the right political way.
Gotcha. That's good to hear.
I think on your list there were some that were working on. There were several working on it, but there were a couple that just no movement or no
right.
interest.
Lake County was working on it anyway.
Lake County,
the sheriff and all the other good stuff.
Lake County?
Yes. With the change in the sheriff and the other issues that the new sheriff is trying to straighten out from previous administration. Extra 911 really slowed down up there. 911 board got equipment, everything was approved. They were ready to move on it. That's one of the things now are on hold. 911 board president HS and stuff central. So things just went. It's gonna be a while before I go back up there.
And I know that's a problem in areas where you've got just a small number of people. If one of them leaves to do something else, projects can kind of fall apart. Before we move on, because Holly is the chair of the Equal Access Committee, and I should have mentioned this during the PUC staff update, as part of the reorganization that I mentioned earlier, Holly's supervisor also left. So mine went to the public sector, or excuse me, to the private sector. Holly's supervisor, Susan Travis, who a lot of you probably know from working with her on 911 surcharge applications, she has retired. So Holly has been reassigned to work with me. She will continue to be focusing on the telecom relay service program for the state of Colorado, but in addition to that, she will also be picking up some of the 911 work as well. So she's going to be learning about 911 surcharge applications and getting more involved in these meetings in order to get to learn by osmosis some of the 911, more of the 911 side of the PUC's responsibilities. So you'll probably be seeing a lot more of her in the future, and I'm happy to have her working on these issues as well.
This is Holly. As Carl mentioned at the Mountain Connect conference, I'm the one who yells at you to state your name before you talk.
That's right.
But didn't you also get a promotion at Mountain Connect?
This is Holly, yeah. I actually took Lynn's place during Mountain Connect since she was leaving, and I'm apparently now the telecom section chief.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
All right, so Joe Benkert. Before we move on.
This is Holly, you're quick learners.
I try, but I forget easily. For the jurisdictions that aren't moving very fast to text to 911, we know why, the reasons. Is it financial? Is it not having time? Is it they haven't had a TDY call in, 20 years and don't see a need? Is there?
So the reasons vary, but for the most part, the ones that still haven't transitioned, I think it's just because it hasn't been a high priority for the most part. Now, I do know that the pricing has changed. There used to be a free version of GEMS. I don't know if it's still free to the ones that are already on it.
Oh, I think so. The ones
that grandfathered in, but it's no longer free for anyone who wants to get on it, which I think it creates a cost constraint for some, especially for the ones that still haven't done it, which tend to be the very rural PSAPs.
Yeah, it perversely charges more to the people who can least afford it.
Right.
Right. And not to make the plug, but another reason, statewide surcharge, ubiquitous text 911 should be traveled through the EZNet. 100%.
Right, and that's one of the things too that I think since we're starting the talks about, and starting the preparation for migration to the ESINet, I think some people are seeing that as a potential solution, and it is, except that it's going to be at least a couple years because we're going to have to get through the migration first, and then we're going to have to talk about what text to 911 might look like if we were to do it through the ESINet, what a reasonable price for that would be if it's done through the ESINet. And whether that's something that the 911 authorities even want to have done through the ESINet. So if you're looking at that as well, we'll just wait till it's done through the 911 system itself. That's probably not a good solution because it's going to be at least a couple of years, and in the meantime, you have people in your community who need it or could use it and who don't have access to it.
So if some see it as not being a high priority, are there people in the equal access community who have statistics as to the percentage of hearing loss throughout the state and different counties? People, so you can go and say, these are the number of your people or the percentage. And especially, I think, in the rural areas, the young people move to the big city and the old folks lose their hearing.
So we have had these discussions as part of the Equal Access Committee that there are statistics out there. Unfortunately, the statistics and Holly kind of touched on this, they don't really capture the whole community of people who could benefit from it because there are a lot of people as they get older start experiencing some hearing loss that aren't necessarily listed anywhere as being, having a disability or having a hearing loss in any particular official statistics.
If we have percentages of people who at certain ages suffer different degrees of hearing loss, We can pull from census data the age of their population. We can extrapolate and say, this is why you need it. And these people won't tell you because they're embarrassed.
And you're on the Equal Access Committee, right?
I am. I haven't made many calls, but I am.
We should talk about that on the next call, I think. Cheryl?
I have. Do I have more information on that? I will send that to you.
Thank you, Cheryl. And one of the things I stress when I talk to the PSAPs about text 911 is that really the biggest use case is not people with hearing losses.
Right.
It's people who are in a situation where it's not safe to verbally talk on the phone. And considering that school shootings, for instance, can happen anywhere, and you don't want to be on the phone talking if you're hiding from an active shooter, text 911 is important in every community, whether or not, even if you didn't have any citizens with hearing loss, which is impossible, but even if you didn't have any citizens at all with hearing loss, you would still need text 911.
I wonder if it wouldn't help to get some anecdotal that have this to just collect some
That's a good idea.
stories of, because I can tell you we typically have had domestic situations, burglaries, those kinds of situations where people have used it and it didn't have anything. Now we also have a hearing impaired resident in our county that has medical issues, and this kind of came to my attention because we've never done EMD over text before, so those kinds of things. But I think sometimes maybe use cases and anecdotal might help sell the urgency.
So I just made a note of that. So after next week, I'll maybe shoot out an email to the listserv and ask PSAPs who have deployed a text solution if they have some stories. Because really after these EZNet meetings, that's the area that I want to get back onto. Because we just have a few outliers, but they're going to be the hardest ones to get to.
Oh,
I think that's a great idea.
That was Vicki Pickett.
Yes.
That was Vicki Pickett, Holly. Oh, that was Monica. Sorry. Whoa, I'm really screwing up. I'm going to shut up now.
This is Holly. I promise you'll eventually get there.
I think on the foundation website we have a call from Colorado Springs, the audio of it, where somebody's hiding in the closet while the house is being burglarized, talking to 911. It's been a while since I put it on, but I think the people hear her and open the door and she screams and they run out. But if we can get those kind of audio files from PSAPs in Colorado, they would have a lot of impact as well.
Yep. I think that's the longest equal access report we've ever had.
Daryl, I know it's a new feature to you on the conference bridge, but does it save that transcription as part of the record since you're recording the call? Is it keeping this as well?
Well, I'm recording it, so it should be recording everything that's on the screen.
Oh, so, okay.
But it might also record it. So
where you can pull the transcription.
Google Meet saves. Sorry, I'm not talking to you, phone. It records, when you record, it records the screen, but it also keeps a chat log. So it'll be interesting to look afterwards whether the transcription is in the chat log. That'd be very handy.
Didn't Holly say something about, at least on the Android phones, you can save it and correct it?
Yeah, on the phone version, yeah.
So it may do the same.
It may have similar, yeah. I just noticed I just got the newest version of Word, and I was hovering accidentally over the dictate feature, and I've turned it on. It's transcribing everything that we're saying.
As you say, Office 365 has that as well, and it does a great job.
I think
transition. Yeah, it does a great job, so that's good.
This is Holly. In addition to what Google does, if you're using Google Slides instead of like Microsoft PowerPoint, Google Slides will also do what this is doing right now, where you're doing like a presentation and it'll embed the captions into the actual slide presentation. So lots of cool things happening with Google to make things accessible.
And I have used that before with Google Slides, and it works about as well as this is right now, which is pretty good. The hard part is just remembering to do it.
Se habla español.
There you go.
Oh.
It said say instead of say.
Paula and I, I'm sorry, Holly, this is Jeremy Duncan. We're talking actually about Google on the way up here because I said, hey, Google. And it'd be interesting to see how often when you do that, how many phones light up in a room.
Right.
Just because of that. But I was actually doing some testing for word and conversion of text to 911 from one product to another in Grand Junction. And I can see why there's some holdback based on cost associations of that product from one to the other. But just doing the English to language transitions in Spanish, and I did Armenian, and it's amazing how well that has evolved over the years from a technical standpoint in those translations. So,
if someone calls 911 who's hard of hearing, can you say, instruct them to turn on this, and you could talk to them through the phone, and it would print out for them?
I don't know.
I mean, this is Holly. If they were calling from
Google phone,
an Android phone, they could potentially do that, as long as you're able to have your cellular call and your IP captioning, kind of what it's doing, connecting to the internet, working at the same time.
This is Daryl. My guess is that in order for that to be practical, that would have to be turned on already, because it's not you have to actually go into the accessibility features and turn it on through the settings. So it's probably not something you want to try to do during an active 911 call.
Yeah, unless somebody reached out to them ahead of time.
Right.
Holly, is this something a lot of people are already using in that community?
This is Holly. Honestly, I don't think so. Like Daryl said, like, where do you even find out this stuff is available? I was at a conference back in July in Florida with Sprint accessibility, and Sprint was talking about how so many of their deaf employees are jumping ship with iPhone and switching over to Android because of how many accessibility features they have. And so then I started sharing, like, with my friends in the deaf community, and people were like, whoa, we had no idea like these tools are even like readily available. So yeah, I think it's just kind of by word of mouth that it's starting to get out. I don't think Google is doing a ton of outreach, specifically to the deaf community. I'm hosting a conference in September for the National Association for State Relay Administrators who do what I do, and we've actually invited Google to come and for them to talk about some of these products and also learn about like what their outreach looks like, because what's the point of having all these products if the people who they're intended for don't even realize they're out there. So hopefully we'll get a little bit more information from them on what their tactic is for using this type of stuff.
Yes, every once in a while it just stops and then catches up. It's interesting.
How does it deal with people from New York?
Or the South.
NSA takes a coffee break.
Ms. Carl, anything else on equal access?
Yeah. I think there's coffee in between.
Okay. Next is outage report. Daryl.
So the outage, if you've tried to look at the outage dashboard recently, you've probably seen that it hasn't been working. It was under construction, but I've gotten it back to where I wanted it. I stopped using that other product. It just didn't have the features that we needed, so we're back to just a spreadsheet that is publicly available, shows the last 10 outages. One thing you may notice is that I now have the charts broken out by BES outage only and all reported outages. And the reason I did that is because as part of that 911 reliability workshop, it became apparent to me that not all of the outages that get reported to the PUC are actually basic emergency service outages, meaning outages that affected the call flow from the ingress to CenturyLink to the point where it's handed off to the call center. And because those are the types of outages that the Commission actually has jurisdictional authority over, it was necessary as part of those workshops to break them out. So I've shown that in these reports as well. So you have from 2016 to the present, only basic emergency service outages, and then down below you've got all reported outages. So that information is still available, but I now have it broken out so you can see it both ways. Where we're at in terms of BES outages for 2019, we are below where we were last year as of this date. We are at 5 compared to 8 last year. Our outages by month, we didn't have any in January and February. We had 2 in March, 2 in May, 1 in April. I just got a report this morning that there's another outage in Rangeley, Colorado. I don't know if that's a basic emergency service outage or not because I haven't had time to investigate it, but I'll be looking into that one. And you can see the rest of these. So far this year, of the outages that we've had, 1 was unknown, still under investigation. The other 4 have been system failures. One thing I have been seeing is that we've been getting a lot more alley outages in the last roughly 12 months than we have previously. And I'll be, because CenturyLink is now part of the outage committee, I'll be working with them and talking to them about what the reasons for that might be, and if there's anything that we can do to try to mitigate those outages in the future.
Do we differentiate whether alley outages are due to facilities being cut or due to problems in the operations center?
So we differentiate between whether or not an outage, including an alley outage, is due to a fiber cut. This is your outage cause pie charts here. We haven't had any outages this year due to fiber cuts of basic emergency service. And an alley outage is always a basic emergency service outage because unless it is due to a CPE issue at the PSAP. We're looking. We are going to be looking specifically at an outage that Rangeley had about a month ago, simply due to the fact that it lasted 24 hours. We're going to be looking more at that outage, as well as I'm going to be working with the PSAPs and a couple of other instances where they've had outages that there were specific. They've contacted me with specific concerns. Bruce?
I think I need some help understanding the difference between just an outage and a basic emergency service outage.
Sure.
So in May, there was a CenturyLink fiber cut out in eastern Arapahoe County.
Right.
That fiber has a meet point from the rural carriers, TDS, Eastern Slope, and Bijou. ILEX come to a meet point on that fiber, and then that fiber carries the traffic to the rest of the world. So when that fiber is cut, those 3 carriers, those local ILECs out there, are isolated and cannot get 911 or any other traffic into a PSAP. So how is that not a basic emergency service outage?
Because the basic emergency service part of the call flow starts at the point where the 911 call enters the selective router and ends where it is passed off to the PSAP.
Okay.
So the outage is, in that case, is taking place before it gets to the selective router.
Okay, thank you.
Might be more accurately described as a basic emergency service provider outage or network outage. Because it's once it gets in the basic emergency service provider's network.
Okay.
Correct.
And it's not considered that until it hits the selective router.
Correct.
Okay.
And that is the reason for making that such a distinction is because in 2014, the legislation that was passed deregulated pretty much everything other than the basic emergency service portion of the network.
Okay.
That doesn't mean we don't track it if it gets reported to us, but that's the reason why I broke these out, because they're technically not required to report those to the PUC. But if they do report them, we track them. But it's good practice to keep track of which is basic emergency service and which isn't. Any other questions?
Next item is prepaid and collections. Jackie Louise.
I'm not sure if Jackie's still on the call, but to my knowledge, they have not met because a lot of the topics they were talking about overlap with the legislative committee.
This is Jackie. I am. Sorry, I was having computer difficulty. Yes, what Daryl said. We basically put that on hold until we were kind of finished with the legislation, because we're talking about a lot of the same things.
Thank you. Reports Committee, Daryl.
So it is time for another report from the task force to the commission. I did send out a draft report to the reports committee. They provided me with some feedback, which I then incorporated and sent out to the full task force. And hopefully people have had a chance to look at it. That was included in the meeting materials that I sent out last week. And if people are comfortable doing so, I would ask for an approval of the report. Or if you have any questions or comments about the report, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
I'll move to approve. This is Jeff Irvin. I think you did a great job, Daryl, and it's always appreciated the work that you put in this.
Thank you.
This is Bruce. I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
The next is EZNet Users Group, Daryl.
And Bruce, if you want to talk about this, you can. I put my name on here because we hadn't had elections yet.
Yeah, if you want to start, then I can.
Sure. So we had the first meeting of the ESINet Users Group yesterday morning. The first order of business was really just kind of recapping what the purpose of the users group was, going over the charter, make sure everyone understood the sort of the parameters that the task force had agreed to at our last meeting about the users group. And then we had an election of officers. The officers, according to the charter, are a chair, vice chair, and secretary. Bruce was elected chair. Kimberly Culp is vice chair, and I was elected secretary. And then we had an open discussion about potential future topics for the users group, a number of concerns and questions about how the ESINet migration will take place were aired, which I actually think is good news because it shows that the user group is fulfilling the purpose that it was created to fulfill, to be a forum for those types of discussions. Unfortunately, CenturyLink could not be on that call due to some scheduling conflicts. However, they have said that they will be on our next call, which will be July 24th. It'll be from 10 a.m. to noon. And if you still do not have a representative, if your 911 authority does not have a representative on that users group, please get with me and we can work that out. Figure out who your representative is going to be so we can get you on that distribution.
Are these calls limited to voting members, or can anybody call in and listen?
I believe we made those open, didn't we, in the charter?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. But it's available to anybody. It's just there's a certain list.
Okay. But we make it. I think we also have the option to go in executive session if needed.
Right.
Right.
What's the number?
The number?
No number?
Oh, it'll be it'll change from meeting to meeting.
Okay.
It'll be a Google Meet.
Okay. Would you send that out more broadly than just to the voting members?
I'm trying to think where so last time for the next meeting I sent it out to the voting members and I sent it out to the Colorado 911 listserv. I can also start sending it out to the task force listserv. That way you guys will have it too.
Thanks.
With some of the concerns that were aired yesterday, Kimberly, Daryl, and I have been going back and forth on email, collecting those, and planning to get some of those concerns to CenturyLink before the next meeting, so they can have some time to get some responses to those concerns.
And that was one of the reasons too. We talked about having meetings monthly, but our next meeting is actually just 2 weeks away, simply because we didn't want to wait a whole month before engaging with CenturyLink on those items. July 24th, 10 a.m. to noon. And it's, for now at least, they are remote only. There's no in-person. And that's all I had.
And I think it's definitely an important meeting to be involved in. I mean, it's going to kind of set the pace for 911 in Colorado. And also thank you to Bruce, Kimberly, and Daryl. I think that's a great group to get this meeting, or this group, up and running. Do you have anything else, Bruce?
Oh, that's it.
Okay. Next is 911 Colorado Foundation, Vicki.
Vicki, no update.
Question. I think it's accurate. I've tried to do an update for Chaffey County. I don't know if that's...
You need to send it to me.
Yeah. Why, is there some thing on the website that makes it look like you can do an update?
Gosh, it was...
I'm trying to see if there's anything on there. Okay. Well, we can definitely make the update for you.
And if you have changed your emergency notification system in your county, the Resource Center also has a page with all of that information on it. So it will be there, so it can be updated there as well.
Somebody in state OIT, and I don't remember who, asked me how many people in the state of Colorado were signed up on an ENS system. And obviously we don't collect that data. So I was like, sorry dude, we don't have it. So it was interesting that they were asking, probably for some kind of public safety communication.
I know I have a Northwest all hazard next week in Denver. That was one of the topics, was that. I think also the emergency alert, I mean the IPOS and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Probably easier to figure out how many people have snowshoes than how many people
Yeah.
have plenty
I was
in that.
like, man, I don't even know how to answer
Well,
this question.
every authority, though, should have a database, and Code Red and Everbridge may be...
Yeah, we could...
But you'd have to reach out to every authority.
Yeah, and
Or Code Red and Everbridge.
They won't release it.
They won't
It's
give us
about
the data.
numbers.
Yeah, and you've got to,
It's the numbers.
you've got to differentiate between your MSAG information that's
Yeah.
automatically uploaded to the yellow
There's
page,
public
or
opt-in.
the public opt-in.
That's exactly it.
And it changes too often, because
Yeah.
if you have a big fire or something, the opt-ins may, or your neighbor has a big fire, your opt-ins
Yeah, it's
may
a
jump.
snapshot for sure.
I just told them we didn't have the data and we couldn't do it. We have a hard enough time getting our PSAPs and authorities to answer the very few data questions we ask. And I'm just not asking another question at this time. There's too much going on.
Next is Colorado Public Safety Broadband update. Ed Mills, do you have an update?
He probably fell asleep waiting for his turn.
And it's *6 to unmute if you're having problems unmuting.
Okay, how's that?
There we go.
All right. Yeah, thanks for that clue. I wouldn't know. I would still be out there in conference land. So I know you're probably getting tired of this, but this will be the shortest report you get. So with the new administration, it's taken us several months to get ramped up. And as you know, we lost a couple of members, and so it's taken us a while to fill our team. I am happy to report that we have all the positions that we have open. They are filled. We'll tell you more about Kay Hinsey. She's on our team, and we're all getting our assignments, and we will have more clarity in your next meeting. We'll give a full report about who is who and what everyone is doing, and we'll give you some updates on some of the stuff that we're working on. We had some lagging in time where we had some time where it was a little unfocused, but we've got clarity from the governor's office, and as we fill those positions, we'll be more of an assistant to everyone across the state. I do want to just give a shout out to Daryl Branson. He was at Mountain Connect. He led 2 sessions. Just great information about the 911 community. And Daryl is just he's a tremendous resource, not only for our office, but the state of Colorado. And so, Daryl, we thank you and appreciate all your hard work. And I'm going to leave it right there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, PSCS, Deanie. Do you have anything?
I know there's some, Paul, do you still sit on the PSCS?
I sometimes call in, but I'm not a member.
You're not a member of
voting
the
member
board
any longer.
Something that I want to make everybody aware of, the PSCS is going after some state level funding potentially in the next legislative session. So whomever from our community sits on that working group, board, whatever, we need to very much get in sync before we all approach legislators. I'm not sure how their legislative authority works, but if we're all attacking the taxpayers at the same time for monies, we're going to need to get in sync for what that looks like, or we're both going to lose.
Yeah.
So we need to coordinate an effort of what that looks like, because frankly, selfishly, I'll be pushing for the 911 community, because for over 20 years we've needed to update our legislation, and I'll be strong-arming as much as I can, but we can't both be fighting for the same bucket of money with taxpayers, because we will not be successful.
This is Bruce, and weren't they even bantering around the idea of a per phone line charge,
Yes.
which would very much look like a
Surcharge. That is absolutely correct, and quite frankly, I think is outside of their jurisdiction of what they can ask for, but they may or may not know that, because I don't even know who makes up the PSCS board anymore. So this could be problematic for us, because we only have a couple of shots at this, and our first shot will be this upcoming legislative session. So I don't even know when their next meeting is.
It's today at 1 o'clock, and I'll be on that phone call, and I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about.
There's that email. They sent an email with that group. That was also brought up at the last meeting. They had a list of everything, possibilities.
They're looking at different funding solutions.
But one of those funding sources is 911. And I did send an email to Dave Hayes and haven't heard back from him.
Okay.
Who's the chairman of the...
Right. I can definitely bring up your concerns today at 1.
And I
can help with that too.
Yeah.
And I am a member.
And we should maybe be in sync, at least coordinating,
And
so...
the way I understood it was just, we're throwing
Yeah.
all of this on the wall to see what
sticks.
They didn't have
Yeah.
a appointed plan.
Yeah.
Oh, that one doesn't stick.
Okay.
Right.
But it's good for them to know that going into it, so
Right.
we don't come up with two pieces of legislation going after 911 funding or something.
Or frankly, two pieces of legislation from a public safety perspective.
And we may be more powerful if we could do one legislation for both of them.
Right.
Even if they do a different funding source.
That's, you know, Connie, I know you guys were talking, but Carl's point is, we can't go at it with two pieces of legislation from a public safety perspective, but we may be more impactful if we can come up with one piece of legislation jointly that solves both problems. Because we would probably get more legislators, and including the governor's office, to support that, more than we would two separate.
But we'd have to do different funding or sources.
Yeah.
This is Bruce, and really, we have to be, for our legislation, we've got to get that finalized, and we've got to find a sponsor like now.
Now. Yeah, we don't have a lot of time.
If they haven't determined a funding source, written any sort of proposed legislation and found a sponsor, they're probably not going to make this next legislative session.
Yeah, but it's important for us to keep on top of that.
Absolutely. And my impression is that they are willing to work with us. They want all of us to be successful.
Right.
Well, that's why they wanted the 911 representation on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. I'm sorry, I just like you. It was ideas.
Yeah, it's ideas, but I also see that as
set in stone.
we're already working on that. We need to make sure we're all in sync and on the same page.
Okay.
Because we don't need 6 different groups, public safety,
absolutely.
working on some stuff.
We'll definitely make sure that that's understood.
And I did send Dave an email saying that
Okay.
Colorado Task
I'll
Force is
ask
already working on that.
Okay.
Can I mention one thing before we move on?
Yes.
Harry Krieger, who is the first vice president of CACP, and one of our board members on our authority, reached out to me just a day or so ago and asked me to share with other comm center managers that CACP is allowed to nominate one person to the State Public Safety Communications Subcommittee, and they're looking for, he's looking for recommendations as to a nominee, so,
And this is Paula, that was the position I held,
yeah.
was representing the CACP and recommended, somebody in public safety or knowledgeable about radio systems and
Yeah, they said-
interoperability.
They said the
Sit
initial
on
could be a
that.
comm center manager, supervisor, or executive director.
And it really could be, so.
So if anybody interested, or I'll forward it on to Gary and let me know.
You have time now, you're not executive director of the task force.
Yeah.
I could do that. But I would really prefer that it's an active line person that would probably be a better person than me.
It's once a month.
But I would certainly be willing to throw my hat in the ring.
I would happily do it, but I don't think that I qualify under under.
And yeah, I'm kind of like you. I mean, my focus is specific to 911, so it doesn't feel like it fits in my.
I'm not involved in operations.
Right.
They really do talk a lot of, their focus is interoperability for whatever, they were focused on radios, but FirstNet coming on board and integration into next generation 911, it's expanded. And so really having a broad knowledge of all those systems really is helpful, and that's probably why they reach out to comm center directors, because we do. I just couldn't continue with that workload and not do.
Would it be possible to, you said he reach out to you directly, or?
Yeah, Gary's on our authority. He's one of our directors.
Oh, okay. If they could, write up an email asking for people to consider it and send it to me, I can forward it on to the statewide listserv.
Okay.
That'd be a better way to get the information out than just one at a time.
Yeah, because maybe there's somebody with a little window of opportunity in their calendar that could accommodate that from our community.
I'll gin up some language and send it to him, say, is it okay to distribute this? And,
Perfect. That'll work.
Next up, Division of Fire Prevention and Control, Darrell.
So I think there are people in here who are a lot more involved in this than I was, and I think, Carl, you were probably one of them,
Yeah.
but I think we have to choose somebody from the task force to be on this.
This is the legislation?
Yeah.
Now we have to submit a letter.
Oh.
So this is from legislation to pass creating the actual term for it, Fire Commission.
Fire Commission, yeah.
And one of the positions on the Fire Commission is set aside for the 911 Advisory Task Force. It says 911 Advisory Task Force member. I don't know that it necessarily, I think it's a member representing the 911 Advisory Task Force. My guess is it probably does not have to be a voting member of the task force, but it needs to be someone chosen by the task force.
It's on the fire, it's a fire group now, the fire committee.
Because kind of to give recommendations on to the state on fire, but they wanted a dispatch personnel on there. And I know
So it's an
Monica was
advisory
involved
board
with
to the
legislative
state
stuff.
on combating wildfires?
Yeah.
And I have the actual legislation in here. Let me take a look.
Really?
I mean, their director came from here, and he's pro-dispatch, so he's used to dispatch being
Yeah,
involved in
he
stuff.
was very adamant that this position be included on the commission.
Yeah,
So
and he apparently won.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it says, this commission's purpose is to enhance public safety in Colorado through an integrated statewide process focused on the fire service's capacity to conduct fire management and use, preparedness, prevention, and response activities to safeguard lives, property, and natural resources and increase the resiliency, blah, blah, blah. The Commission may establish task forces to study and make recommendations on specific subjects within the Commission's areas of study. Who does it advise?
The Colorado Department of Fire Prevention and Control.
Okay.
Which is under Department of Public Safety.
Gotcha. So the short of it is, at the last meeting we talked about appointing someone or having a vote to appoint someone from the task force, and at that time we didn't because it wasn't in the bill wasn't in effect yet, but it is in effect now. So I think we need to take a volunteer, or
so is there a volunteer?
I would happily volunteer, but am I a member of the task force?
Well, we don't think it has to be a member.
Well, I'm not a voting member, but
I don't think it has to be.
So they're saying that it's a member of that board who's a representative of this task force.
Right, and we could appoint anybody.
And I know Monica attended some of the legislative stuff as well as Bruce.
Well, it says one member of the 911 Advisory Task Force established by the Public Utilities Commission. It doesn't say voting member though, so I don't know that it has to be a voting member.
And anybody who comes to a meeting is a member.
Yeah.
well, there you have it. I'm volunteering if you so would like to consider it. There you go.
Anybody else? Okay, we'll send a letter to the executive director. Is that what we do next, do you know, or? Because I haven't seen.
Vote? Do you need to vote?
We can vote, but.
I think that this kind of position is just appointed by the chair, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Kimberly, is that not correct by our bylaws?
I hope you wouldn't lose.
I'm sorry, what was that about the bylaws?
Isn't this sort of a position just an appointment by the chair, not a vote of the voting members?
Yeah, that can be done. We don't need to vote for that.
Chairs of committees are appointed by the chair of the task force, and that's kind of similar. This is kind of similar, yeah.
When they sent you the stuff, or did you just find the stuff?
They did not send this to me.
Okay.
I've been following it since it passed. I don't know what the process is, but I'll find out, and if we need to send a letter to them, I will draft something up and get it to you for signature.
Okay.
How's that sound?
This is Carl. That's done with reports. Any old business? Any new business? State next gen 911 plan.
So I talked a little bit about this at the last meeting, but there is a document that was put out by the National 911 Program Office. They actually had an older version that was on there for a long time. They've updated it. They updated it late last year in December. It's no longer just called Guidelines for Developing a State 911 Plan. Now it's Guidelines for Developing a State NG 911 Plan. This is one of the things that they really encourage states to have for applying for grants, and especially if even a much scaled down version of the NG 911 Act that I talked about earlier passes, we will probably want to have something like this in place to help bolster our grant applications in the future. And so I wanted to bring this to the task force's attention and ask what the appetite would be. I know that everybody has a lot on their plate. Nobody wants more committee meetings. And this is not something that has to be done right now, but I'm thinking after we get the next State of 911 report completed for the legislature, that maybe this would be something that we would want to try working on as a group. Maybe not done in the task force itself, but like we have an editorial committee that's been put together for the State of 911 report, if there would be people who would be interested in working on this for the state of Colorado. And then the final version of it would be brought to the task force for approval. To give you an idea of some of the things that it covers, you can see the table of contents here. Executive summary, state's plans, introduction, a plan maintenance section, NG 911 roadmap section, programs and operations, technical systems, data development, maintenance and support, and analysis and planning section.
This sounds like it contemplates the state running the system. So
Not necessarily.
I don't know that all these would apply in that manner, but I think
That's the same report we gave to the legislature last January?
It covers, there's overlap.
Oh.
Yeah, there's overlap. And yeah, anything that comes out of the state 911, or excuse me, the National 911 Program Office is usually focused on a top-down state 911 program approach. But usually you can adjust it for local control states. But there are probably about as many states that are local control on their 911 as there are top-down states, or some combination of the two.
How soon would you want to tackle something like this?
So the state, the annual State of 911 report is due in September. I would probably want to start working on this after that.
I'm thinking maybe pushing it out into 2020 after NG 911 migration or something.
Right. At the same time, though, I think some of the work that we would be doing on this would really help develop the work of the ESINet users group for after the migration. Because after the migration is complete, the next thing that that users group will probably want to look at is, what else do we want to do with this ESINet? Now, since we're paying so much for it, what else can we get out of it? And some of the work that we do in this plan may help inform those decisions.
Subcommittee of that group, perhaps, the better body.
That might be.
Could this support the legislative efforts? Will we have it done in time?
No.
This will probably not be done in time for that.
I'd be interested.
But yes, it could, if the timing worked out better.
So if the task force wants to proceed with this, I would volunteer to work on it, but somebody's going to have to pester me.
Somebody what?
It's going to have to pester me to focus on it
I would be
from time to time.
You know I'm good at pestering people.
Pestering Joe.
That's not what I meant.
Get a taser and plant it.
Taser. We love you, Joe.
I won't get much done if I'm squirming around on the floor.
It'd be fun to watch.
I would happily help in my free time.
I guess, you know, to Joe's question, I think one of the things we may want to decide is this something that the task force wants to do as a committee of the task force, or would this be better tackled within the scope of the ESINet users group? Maybe I should bring this to the next meeting of the users group.
It would be the same people.
Good,
A lot of
same
same
people.
people, yeah.
Pretty much all of it.
Instead of creating another committee.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
The result's going to be the same.
Right.
Because the people that are going to participate, if we do it here, are probably the people that are participating there. So
Well, do we know who the president? Oh, you're the president of the users group.
There's no president. I'm the chair.
The chair. Excuse me. The chair. What do you think? Do you think this would be a good topic for the next meeting of the users group?
Frankly, I don't think it matters where it lands. This in the task force or that group, I think it's going to be.
Make it a joint project with the task force.
Yeah.
And he's volunteering to be the chair for this.
I didn't say chair. I said I'd be willing to participate.
I recommend it be a user group project.
Okay.
There you go.
And since it's open meetings,
At least Jeff is the sane voice in the room.
Right.
Just wants to get on to the next.
Right, and Joe can still be involved in this because we're going to send that meeting invite out to the task force. Okay. I think I've got direction on that though now, unless somebody else has anything.
And we've already done the nationwide EAS test on August 7th. Anything for open discussion? Next is lunch presentation. Lunch is here. You want to grab lunch, eat a little bit, and then have Matt with Russ Bassett do the presentation. Okay, cool.
And Matt's one of my very favorite people.